Welcome to another episode of the Uplifting Fragment Classes. Have you ever felt that you're not enough? Have you ever felt that your dreams are not valid? Have you ever felt pressured by the norms around you, the environment around you, pressuring to be what they want you to be, not what you want to be? Well, this episode is meant for you. Today we're going to tell you that you should pay a deaf ear to what the society, to what the environment around you is saying, and at least listen to yourself and what your heart says. I am so excited today to be joined by one of the amazing young men who is striving to make an impact and empower the youth and the world at large. Well, not to rob him the chance of introducing himself, I want us to welcome the guest for today and to give him a chance to introduce himself to you all and probably tell us things that we don't know about him, fun fact about him, and of course everything we need to know about him. You're most welcome to the studio. This is the Uplifting Fragment Classes. Here we empower lives through motivation and inspiration. We say that you are far from weak. You're most welcome. Can you tell us about yourself?
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. Basically, what I would say about myself is first, my name. My name is Nhial Moses. Simple names that I use on a daily basis. Then, on the other hand, is a South Sudanese who is out there job seeking, graduate of civil engineering from Makerere University. So it's been a year now, just staying down, trying to get a job, trying to get what to do, but it's not been easy. But I've not used that to limit me, so I've been venturing into things that I love doing besides my professional growth. I'm looking at my personal growth, so it's what I'm venturing into more than what I do professionally. Yeah. So that's all you can know about me. So other things would be basically right now we're running the Pillars of Peace, which is also an initiative and also a foundation where we get out to the community and try to preach peace, try to preach togetherness. So we have the 5 F's in the Pillars of Peace. That is faith. We believe that God is the one that brings things together. And second is fellowship. So we come together and talk. Like the way we do these podcasts, we do reach out to the communities. Then the next thing is friendship. So through the fellowships, we build friendships. Then the next F is family, where we create a family of friends. So simply because we have the faith, we come to pray together, and then we fellowship together. We build friendships. Through those friendships, we build a family. From that family, we can build forgiveness and reconciliation, which is the last F. So that is basically what we're doing in the Pillars of Peace. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, you've listened enough. He's a graduate at Makerere University, and of course he's doing a lot of things outside there, still seeking for a job, the same story that we have as all the South Sudanese in the country. But well, it seems like he has a lot to tell us, but not to focus on everything. We're going to focus on what we are going to talk about today, which is the thin line between the self-acceptance and self-complacency. This is where we're trying to say, can you please accept yourself, accept who you are? And at the same time, if you have weaknesses around you, you do not have to ignore them. You have to accept that I need to change. So you have to differentiate your weaknesses and your strength. Accept your strength, and of course, you have to change. But many speakers and many podcasts probably have talked about self-acceptance, how you should accept who you are, your authentic self. But what we forget to talk about very many times is how we also want to just be comfortable with our weaknesses, believing that this is who I am. So this podcast is going to open your minds today, and it's going to tell you that please, the weaknesses that you have around you, you have to take change in. Do not be adamant. Change and accept yourself at the same time so that you be your authentic self. And of course, we're going to be taken through all this by the guest that we have. That is Nhial Moses. Of course, from what he has told you, you're going to believe that he's going to tell you everything, and he's going to take us through all this and make us understand how we shall accept ourselves and at the same time change our behaviors, our weaknesses, our flaws, and everything around us. We also appreciate you being here at the same time. So as we end this conversation, we shall explore the concept of self-acceptance and the role in personal growth. We shall also highlight the societal pressures that hinders individuals from being their true selves. We shall also talk between the difference of self-acceptance and self-complacency, emphasizing the need of personal growth. We shall also share the practical strategies for overcoming self-doubt while we're striving for continuous improvement. And of course, at the last, we inspire and encourage the listeners and everyone around the world to at least accept themselves while they also accept change. Well, Mr. Nhial Moses, I have a few questions for you, probably a few or more questions that you're going to make us understand what is self-acceptance and self-complacency. So the first question that I may ask you is, how would you define self-acceptance and self-complacency in your own words? And what do you think makes them different? The ground is yours.
Basically, sometimes we categorize the two, which is self-acceptance and self-complacency. These are two things that fall under the aspect of self-awareness. Okay, knowing yourself is the fundamental thing. Knowing your values, knowing your faults, your strength, your weaknesses, your present, your future, your imperfections as a human being is the first thing that is brings about self-awareness and self-complacency. Now, self-awareness is accepting those imperfections and giving yourself room to grow despite those imperfections. But then self-complacency is basically accepting those imperfections and putting them as a limit for your growth, while knowing at the back of your mind there is also room for you to grow. You get? So you are in a situation whereby self-acceptance makes you believe that you can grow, but self-complacency makes you to stop growing from moving forward. So the difference between the two is literally a very thin line. You're not going to just say these things literally look similar. Okay, they look similar because in the end, if you're going to go ahead and accept yourself for who you are, that means you are putting yourself in a situation that I have this strength, I have this weakness that I can work on, I have this strength that can build me to the next level that I want to be in life. Okay, but then the being complacent at the same time is saying I am comfortable with where I am, right? Despite the fact that I'm lazy, it's fine. You know, you can give yourself an excuse and be like, I'm lazy. I don't want to do anything, right? And it's my nature to be lazy. Yeah. So don't blame me for not doing anything in the first place. So that is being complacent with yourself. But self-awareness or self-acceptance is knowing that you're lazy, but still go ahead to do the work, right? So to me, that is basically where the difference comes in. Yeah. That's what I would say on that. And my personal view is...
So it's actually just a thin line.
A very thin line.
You are lazy, but you do not want to work. That is self-complacency.
Exactly.
But self-acceptance is believing, yes, you are lazy, but still go and work.
You have to get things done.
Yes.
So it's basically self-awareness. You are aware of your imperfections. You are aware of your faults. You are aware of your weaknesses. But then accepting your weaknesses and going ahead to do something for yourself is self-acceptance.
That is beautiful, and probably the next question will not be very far from this because I feel like you've already exhausted the answer. But still, to just clarify to the listeners, what does it really mean to accept yourself? And how can you make it sure that it doesn't stop you from growing or improving?
Number one, for you to accept yourself is look within. Have an honest, complete and honest understanding of who you are. That's the first step. If you do not understand who you are, you can never be able to grow as an individual. So basically, the first step you do is stay curious. People who are curious are always the ones that want to know more. They want to do more. They understand there's room for growth. So they go ahead and they're curious. They want to learn something new. They want to do this and that and that. They are not very critical with themselves. Somebody will ask themselves and be like, you know what? How can I improve in this field in life, right? That person is very curious about themselves, about what they can do. And then there are those who are very critical. They'll be like, but I'm not really good in this, so why should I go ahead and do something, right? That in that way, you're being critical, and that critical thinking bogs you down from your potential. Because the only way you can rise is to look at yourself, accept yourself for who you are, and then go ahead and develop yourself despite having that challenge, right? Then the next thing is set your goals with love for yourself.
Set your goals.
Yes, set your goals with love for yourself, not shame. Because the people who say, I'm going to set this goal for myself, I want to do this thing in my life. That is simply because they have identified something and they want to change it in themselves. But there are people who identify that weakness and they put it as a shame on themselves, right? That is being complacent with yourself. You say, I cannot do this simply because I am weak in that. But somebody who has done self-acceptance is somebody who is going ahead and say, I am weak in this, but I can still find a way of doing my things despite that weakness, right? Then the next thing is, you don't have to limit yourself. You celebrate the little progress. Life is not about perfection,
Beautiful.
right? It's not about perfection. You're not going to wait for that time when you're very perfect, that now you know this thing, then you can go out.
You don't have to be perfect.
Exactly. So you just push yourself. You win a little bit, you celebrate that.
Celebrate it.
You win a little bit, you celebrate that. And then the next thing is you have to stay honest. Be honest with yourself. You can lie to the world. You can lie to yourself, right?
Yes.
You can't lie to
can't
yourself.
lie to
Definitely.
yourself.
So when you close the door in your room and you're on your bed, you reflect and you be like, I have done this, and I think it is very honest for me to accept that this was wrong, this is my weakness, this is my strength, right? So if you're not honest with yourself, there is no way absolutely that you can grow. You will only get comfortable with who you are at the moment. So accepting yourself is basically the beginning of everlasting growth. So once you accept something like this, that I'm weak in this, but I'm going to do something to improve it, there you begin to rise, right?
That's beautiful. So the instances I remember when we were young, you could, even at this age probably, you do something wrong and then somebody comes and nudge you back and say, what you're doing is wrong. And then you tell them, I know, even when you didn't know.
Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
do we put that?
That's being
instance?
complacent. That's being complacent.
Not accepting to grow.
Yes, that is, somebody is aware of the wrong they have done, but they do not want to accept that there is that room for them to grow and to become a better person. Have you ever found somebody who is short-tempered and says,
Yes,
yeah,
I could be one.
when I'm short-tempered, I easily slap people, right? They use that as a justification for their actions.
Okay.
So if you are complacent with yourself, you are comfortable with hurting other people simply because you understand that you are you're short-tempered. But if you understand that you're short-tempered, you avoid situations that will make you hurt somebody simply because you already understand that you're short-tempered.
Okay, I will want you to stop there because it seems you're robbing me of what I was going to ask you.
Okay.
Yes, but you've listened very well. Do not be comfortable with the flaws, the bad characters that you have. Please accept change. And our third question, just like I was saying, he's running there before us. How can we be okay with our flaws without using them as an excuse to avoid changing for the better? How can we be okay with our flaws without using them as an excuse to avoid changing for the better?
Definitely. Very nice question. Just as I said, I don't know if I was jumping into
You were running before us.
I was jumping into your questions before reaching the questions. But the first and the most important thing is acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement.
If you acknowledge that you have a weakness in something, let me say, because I just talked about temper, I could say somebody is impatient, right? So if you're impatient and you're aware that you are impatient in life, you acknowledge it, right? So when you acknowledge it, you now work towards changing it. But if you justify it, just like the way I said, if you justify it so that your actions are meaningful to you and not to the other person, that becomes a problem. That means you're complacent with yourself, right? But if you acknowledge it and accept that, oh, you know what? I'm very impatient, right? But let me just give him 10 more minutes. Let me wait for him, right? Even though he's late. But then that kind of space you're giving him is also helping you to grow as an individual. That despite my being impatient, I can be able to grow through this. Though this person is nagging me and stuff like that, I can be able to grow. But then if you justify that maybe he's late for 10 minutes, I should leave this place. I should find another place. Let me just go and do my own things. I don't care why he's so late on this. You're justifying your actions through that. So if you do not acknowledge your things, you're going to justify your actions through being complacent. Now, the next thing is you take responsibility with compassion.
Take responsibility with compassion.
Now, taking responsibility with compassion is simply saying, I am responsible to do the house chores. Maybe I'm supposed to wake up in the morning and cook, clean the house and stuff. But you know yourself that I'm lazy. You're a lazy guy. You wake up at 10, you do your stuff at any time that you like, but then
you do not control.
Yes, so you do not take the responsibility. Okay? So if you take up the responsibility, you begin to do things despite knowing that you are very lazy to do those things. Right? So it's taking responsibility to do things despite knowing your weaknesses, your imperfection, your flaws. Now, the other thing is people need to separate identity from behavior.
Okay.
Yes. There are people who say, it is who I am.
I think we need to open ears.
Yes, it is who I am. So why do you care? I can do this, I can do that. That's who I am. But that is not your identity, because there's always room for change. There's room for transformation. So if you are to transform yourself, you have to give yourself that space to separate. This is just a behavior and this is who I am. Right? But people take a behavior to become who they are, which is wrong. So somebody who is taking a behavior to become who they are being complacent with themselves. That is a high level of self-complacency. So if you accept who you are and then you try to change it, that means you are accepting yourself. That is self-acceptance. So that's what I could say with it. So there are people who you've ever heard of how could I say this? Somebody is saying they're lame, right?
Yes.
They have a fall, but they choose to climb Mount Everest.
Okay.
Yes, with the record of being the first lame person to climb the mountain. All right, that person is using their weakness as a fuel to achieve something in life. They're not using it as a brake to stop them from achieving their desires.
As an excuse of not climbing the mountain.
Definitely. So you are in this situation whereby you are choosing yourself for who you are, and you're going ahead to use your flaws as a motivation to do something in your life.
That's beautiful. And I hope you're listening again. At least be motivated. Do something for yourself. Be like the lame man who wanted to climb Mount Everest. I don't know if he went up there.
They went.
That's beautiful.
He went, of course.
So he can achieve his goal, then why not you? Do not use the excuses. Do not use your flaws, your weaknesses you can be better than that. And Mr. Moses, as we still go ahead, I want you to tell us at least how the society rules and expectation make it hard for us to break free.
Society rules and norms. You know, one funny thing about society is it defines who you are. You grow in a society where the life path is already given. You are given a specific direction. You are told what is right and what is wrong. You are told a lot of things while growing up. So the first thing what society does to you is to give you what is subjective success, to define how you should look like, to define how you should talk, to define how you should walk, what kind of person you should marry, what kind of foods you should eat. So if these things that the society has given you that you cannot avoid, if they do not align with your personal goals and dreams, then there is a need for you to change. Now, first and foremost, you must accept that these society needs, these society norms are the way they are. You found them and you leave them. So the first problem is what the society expects from us is to follow its rigid norms. The norms are not something you can wake up one morning as Priscilla and you'll be like, I'm changing the norms today, right? Or today I'm a girl, I get my money, so I have to marry a guy, right? Those things don't work like that.
No, they don't.
You can wake up one morning and you'll be like, as a lady, I'm going to a Christian school, or I'm going to church and I'm choosing to put on maybe a bikini. You can't change that. Of course, it's a norm that you don't have to dress in a certain way. Yeah, so those norms are things you cannot change. But when you accept them for what they are, you now know your limits, right? What the society has given you. Second, there is a problem of comparison in the community. This person is successful in this way. That means if I can reach his level, I'm done. But you know you can go above his level, right? That is your potential. Your potential can push you above that level. So you compare yourself with others simply because that's what the community is putting as the success at that point, right? That is one problem as well. The other one is fear of judgment. In a community, you're judged for who you are. If you step outside the line, that girl, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Know.
Yeah, so you are in a situation where
in societies where girls are supposed to wear skirts, so they say that one wearing
a trouser is spoiled. Is a spoiled
Definitely.
girl. So it's, you have this, if you have the fear of judgment, you can fully do self-acceptance. You be complacent with what the environment has given you. That means you are practicing self-complacency. That means you are comfortable with what the society has given you. But how do you get up as an individual to overcome these kind of things?
Exactly.
Number one, question the script. Question, why is this thing like this? Do I believe in this? Does it match with my values? Is this what I want to do for myself in life? These are the kind of questions that you have to put forward. If you cannot question the script, you can never fully understand what you're supposed to do in life, right? Then, after questioning, go ahead and define your values. Define your boundaries. You'll be like, this is what I stand for. This is what I hope for. This is what I want to do in life. Once you're done with that, you go ahead to select a group of people that are honest with you. People who give you productive feedback. You surround yourself with people who are helpful to you in life, right? Somebody will say, you know what, Priscilla, I don't like the way you did that stuff. You know, it's not nice. It's not nice. So those are people who are real with you. You surround yourself with realness. Let people be there knowing that this is what you did, this is who you are, and that's that. And then it will help you to grow, right? And then the other thing is, if you're living in a society where definition of success and other things is set, you must be at a point whereby if you have to exceed it, you have to accept to be misunderstood. You know, they'll say, why is she doing that? They don't understand what you're doing, right? They don't know what you're doing. But if you do not want to grow, you just say, let them understand me. This is how we do it. But you have to accept yourself and you be like, let them misunderstand me as long as I am growing. Yeah? Progress, steady progress. And be patient with yourself. Know that everything takes time. Everything takes time. You have to be very patient. You have to know that if I am to develop myself in this field, if I'm to grow in this field, if I'm to achieve my dreams in a certain way, I have to accept myself and make sure that I step above the boundaries that the society has set for me. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I think most of us outside there, starting from me and probably somebody who's listening here, have been controlled by the society so much.
Very
you
much.
want to fit in, and then you realize your goals are very negative from what the society wants you to be.
Exactly.
They believe to be a beautiful girl. Let's just start there. You have to be tall. You have to be light skinned.
Slim.
To be a successful girl, probably maybe you should not get PhDs. You should stop at some point and then get married.
Complete senior 4 and get married.
Exactly.
Don't stress so much.
Exactly.
Because
So our guest for today is Nhial Moses. We appreciate you for the insightful conversation. And we have another question for you, of course.
Okay.
Still more questions. And I want to know, what are the dangers of getting too comfortable with who we are? And how can we avoid mistaking it for the real happiness while still growing?
basically, if you get comfortable with who you are, you stop growing. That's the first problem. You stop growing. You be in a situation where you don't give yourself room to grow, where you don't acknowledge that there is space for you to grow, right? So if you are in a situation where you say, yeah, this is who I am, the reality of life becomes blurred. You don't see life the way it used to be. It becomes blurred. So you no longer see life the way you're supposed to see your potential to another level. So that is the biggest danger we have. We stop growing. We just stop growing. That is, and if you stop growing, you don't reach your potential.
Exactly.
So if you give yourself room to grow, you can reach higher potential. So how do you be in a situation where you can avoid being comfortable? Is that what you asked? Being comfortable with?
What are actually the dangers of being comfortable with it, which you've already said it?
Yes.
We just stop growing.
Yeah, you just stop growing, basically.
That is the biggest danger.
That's the biggest danger.
Okay, that is beautiful. But then, how do we find the right balance between accepting ourselves and wanting to improve without feeling like we're not good enough?
Usually people say I'm not good enough, right? And they go ahead and be like, this is not good for me. This is not good for me. But I always encourage people to be open to feedback, right? Accept feedback. There's a point in life where you reach and you be like, you know what? I can do this. But somebody says, you can still improve in this. You're feeling you're good, but there's that room for you to improve. Now, that feedback, if you don't take it constructively, you're not going to grow. You find comfort in whatever you're doing. There are those who are talented footballers. They don't go for training. The match comes, they score more goals than those who went for training.
Okay.
Now, that is talent. But that talent can stop anytime. For you to be good at football, you also need to be fit, right? So that training is working on your strength simply because you know they will push you to a higher level than what your strength is giving you right now. So you basically get the feedback, and then you set for yourself goals. You be like, this is what I want to achieve in the next 2 years, in the next 1 year. This is what I want to do. While checking in on yourself, you talk to yourself. You tell yourself, am I good in this? Am I improving? Is this what I want to do? So you avoid the fact that you are very comfortable in what you already have, but you can also go ahead and improve yourself in one way or the other, right? So these are some of the things you need to do. These are some of the things you need to focus on to avoid mistaking that.
Yeah, it's literally the same thing, how we want to accept ourselves, who we are, our weaknesses, our flaws, our strengths, and also how we want to improve on our weaknesses. So how does somebody goes through all this, the two of them, while not believing that they are not bad enough, and at least at the same time not believing they're too good enough not to improve. This is what we are trying to look into.
Okay. Basically, I would say there's a thin line, there's a gap between knowing your weaknesses, your flaws, and the room to grow. Now, that gap, you can only feel it when you understand that you're a work in progress. No man is perfect, right?
No man is
So,
perfect.
in every way possible, you work in progress. You're moving forward. You're growing every day. You are redefining your goals. You are redefining your happiness. You're redefining what your values are. So, basically, if you're looking at yourself from the perspective of, I want to grow more, that is self-acceptance. That means you're going to push yourself and push yourself. Like the way I said earlier, that you're literally going to celebrate every little happiness that you have. Every single step that you have achieved in life, you're going to push yourself and be like, you know what? I can do this. Let me celebrate. That means I set the next goal higher than what I was having before. And you keep on improving. So basically, you're pushing yourself knowing that you're a work in progress. And at the end of the day, you keep on improving in life until the very, very end. And I think that is very important for people to understand that you are never going to be perfect at once. You're going to keep pushing and pushing.
You're never going to be perfect. So you should be okay with who you are exactly. And if you have seen a weakness on your side, at least improve it.
Work on it.
Work on it.
And if you're okay with who you are, don't forget there's room to grow as well.
Okay, if you're okay with who you are, do not forget that you can still grow.
You can still go higher and higher.
That is beautiful.
Definitely.
So basically, we're coming to the end of this conversation. But before we leave, I want you to tell us maybe a little story, if you don't mind, of when you had to face all this that we are talking about. Yes. And what do you tell the audience outside there as your last word to conclude all this conversation?
I've not had much in life.
Okay.
I've been
You're still growing.
I'm still growing, so I've been literally a kid at home and at school, spending most of my life in boarding school, and also away from home. Away from school was just at home. So many times we hear people saying, "I'm not good in math." This is a big challenge,
Everyone,
right?
I am
Almost
not good
everyone
in
is
math.
saying, "I'm not good in math," but then
Math has suffered.
self-acceptance is realizing that I am not good in math, but I will do 10 numbers every day in order to improve in math. Self-complacency is saying I'm not good in math and I will do nothing because even if I try, I'm still going to fail.
I will remain here.
Now, if you can relate with that, that is basically understanding your problem that you have and then finding a way to solve it. You're going to get 0%, you're going to get 10%, the next time you're going to get 20%, 30%, and then before even you know it, you have 70% in math. That is self-acceptance and doing something, knowing that you have that chance to grow. Doing 10 numbers every day, before you know it, the question bank is done.
Exactly.
But then there are those of us who say, when I stepped out of school and I was trying to do this community outreach, I knew at a certain point I'm not so good at listening. It's my weakness. So I ended up talking the entire time to people. But they say that was my strength.
Yes.
So if I was talking to people and improving their lives without literally listening to what they're about to tell me, when I got to realize that, I said, no, let me listen more. You get? Let me understand his story more. Let me get to the point where he says his heart fully before I can mention a word to them. I know this is my weakness. I have problems with myself, but I cannot stop myself from helping other people despite the problems I have with myself. So basically, to the people out there, is more about accepting who you are, knowing your imperfections, and working, knowing that you have room to grow and not stopping yourself from growing. Stagnation is the worst thing you can ever have. So peace begins with working towards your goals while accepting everything that is with you.
Thank you so much. So stagnation is the worst. We know how stagnant water smells and all this. So you do not want to be that stagnant water.
Sure.
Know your weaknesses, know your flaws, but accept growth. Look for ways you can grow. Look for rooms that will allow you grow.
Definitely.
And one day you're going to be perfect. Though we believe there's no perfection.
There's no perfection.
But somebody outside there will say you are perfect.
Yeah, only the best is good enough.
The best is good enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Nhial Moses, for joining us. Stagnation, that is a very beautiful thing to know about. Stagnant water, it smells badly, and even living organisms inside, they literally die at last. They don't survive. So don't be stagnant water. Accept that I can change, I can be better. This is who I am, but still, if there are flaws and weaknesses, I can be better than this. So the audience outside there, this episode is meant to tell you that you are good enough. Yes, you can never be perfect, but you're good enough with who you are. But still, do not just want to die where you are. If there are flaws, if there are weaknesses, if there are things that you should improve, just know that there's always a room for improvement. You can always improve. You can always be better than who you are yesterday. You can always be better than who you are today in your future. So just accept that, yes, this is me, this is my strength, put it aside, and then work on your weaknesses, and you can always be better. Thank you for joining us once again. We still have with us Mr. Nhial Moses, the host for today. And of course, I am Priscilla Ayuen. We have Mr. Nhial Moses, the guest for today, and I'm your host, Priscilla Ayuen. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening us. And I hope you join us for the next episode. Stay tuned.